Greetings, brave adventurers! I'm FoxyBard, and it's Glory Story Monday. Every Monday here on the channel, I try to help you start off your week right with a little bit of positivity. Sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's just fun and cool, but it's always a good time. I have for you today two different Glory stories, both taken from the subreddit r/RPG Glory Stories. Remember, you can always share some of your own stories, either in the comments below, or by joining the FoxyBard Discord server, link in the description. But for now, let's dive right in! Our first story is about an absolute mad lad of a rogue who makes the accidental decision to skip to the end of the story already. Accidentally killed the big bad evil guy before the final encounter, told by Packers 12 MVP. Yeah, sums that up pretty well. Tale start. Before this session, my character's sister wanted to enter a cursed tunnel system in the mountain range near our hometown. I told her it was too dangerous, and we needed more than the two of us if we were going to search for the last group, a party of 8 veterans who had gone missing trying to locate multiple other, larger parties. She was getting antsy because her ex-not-boyfriend was the leader of the most recently missing party, and my rogue is just trying to keep his little sister safe, knowing that nothing will stop her from entering the caves since she's set her mind on it. As we're discussing it, an elderly tabaxi woman enters the cavern trying to find her grandson, whom had apparently joined the party we would be looking for, so we recruited her rather easily. As she left to get reinforcements from her caravan, nobody joined her though, an airy half-elven woman entered and joined us as well. A party of 4, searching a poorly mapped cave system for multiple much larger, more experienced parties. And the only ones who can read the fairly complex maps have a wisdom score of 8 each. Our party enters, gets into a fight on a wrecked bridge, and later defeats a room full of giant spiders and an undead half-orc. Off to a great start. The party decides to enter a barricaded tunnel since it was the most likely to contain surviving adventurers, and found a populated chamber at the end. We opened this session at a dead end in the cursed tunnel system, having found 2 adventurers who were originally part of a party searching for multiple other missing parties in the caves. This is just a missing person convention. They'd started with 12 and been reduced to a pair. The 2 we found were slightly malnourished and wanted to get back to the surface ASAP, but were otherwise in good shape, and my party needed a long rest, but was otherwise fine on rations and supplies, and wanted to keep investigating for survivors. We tried to exit our little dead end, but heard a lot of shuffling and voices on the other side of our barricade, so we waited about 45 minutes in-game to see if they left, and most of the voices did eventually fade. We now had a tabaxi divination wizard, a human rogue, me, a half-elf ranger, a human paladin, my rogue's NPC sister, and the elf and human NPC finders we had found in the caves. So that's 3 NPCs now, that's getting up there. We stacked up by the barricade to enter the now less full chamber on the other side, and our wizard used our surprise round to shrink the barricade whilst the rest of us created light sources to blind the enemy as we breached. They were in total darkness and stunned everyone inside, so they spent the first turn of combat becoming unsurprised. All but 1 had better initiative than us, so this helped a lot. 3 orcs and a spider who almost killed me, but the divination wizard gave me a nat 20 on my crit failed constitution save when the spider bit me, and then the paladin, in the DM's words, deleted the spider for attacking her brother. What was that accent, Foxy? The orcs quickly down our human fighter, but the paladin revives him, and we trade blows until everyone's HP is as follows. And I can't really follow this next part either, it's kind of confusing, sorry. Us, wizard, 21, unharmed because ranged magic. Rogue, 7, Paladin 5, Ranger 12, Human Fighter 10, Elf Fighter as yet unknown to me, Orcs 7, Fighting Ranger and myself, 15, Evocation Wizard away from all of us, 30-something, Big Bad Evil Guy who was relatively untouched at this point. Mind you, we are level 4, and the Spider Bite alone would have one-shot me if the Divination Wizard hadn't intervened with her pre-rolled nat 20, and later a nat 1 to keep the BBEG from ending me. So we're deciding whether to stand and fight with our superior numbers but inferior HP, or to run away to regroup and heal some, but we don't really know where we would run to, and I personally wanted to win. Character has the "don't tell me the odds" personality trait, as well as ignores the threat of a situation. So I pushed to fight. Never underestimate the power of action economy. I asked out of character if anyone knew the SAS motto, and they didn't, so I told them in character, "Who dares, wins," and then laid out that 2 of the orcs looked beatable within the next turn, and since we had to kill one or else the ranger would go down, we should try to take them out so it would be 6 of us versus the last orc, whom I assumed to just be another orc who got lucky on his attack rolls, rather than having a super deadly greatsword with uber poison on it. We did exactly that, with myself and our wizard chasing the BBEG down a long hallway with 1 HP left, because orc, and I throw my dagger 55 feet, max range is 60 feet, from my offhand for a disadvantaged Hail Mary and kill the BBEG 1 session before the DM planned for it. Rolled a dirty 20 and 24 on that dagger throw. TLDR, I couldn't hear the boss music blaring around me and assumed we were just bad at combat. Ended up killing the BBEG against all odds on the last turn before he would have escaped for another session. And tail end. Oh, it's always fun when you pull something right out of nowhere and not only win a fight, but win the fight harder than the DM ever thought you would. I wonder if the DM went back and just subtly added another boss orc for later, where the BBEG was supposed to be killed. I know there were a bunch of numbers thrown around in there, but the message remains clear. Sometimes throwing caution to the wind and just pulling the trigger can turn out better than you imagined. Next story. Now, I do have to warn you, this story does involve the murder of crabs. If we all just play it cool, the Crabhuna himself won't possibly notice us. This is the story of the Great Crab Catastrophe. Crabtastrophe. Told by the user Salifra. In this story, the rules were so good, you'd think everyone involved, including the DM, was cheating. Tale start. So, a little background information for this campaign. It was my first time GMing at all, and a lot of our players' first time playing the game at all, so it wasn't terribly plot heavy, and the reward for going after the monsters, there wasn't a BBEG for this campaign, was just riches and fame. I set 12 creatures into the world for them to fight, based on the 12 Western zodiac signs. 6 of them could be defeated through diplomatic means, or by solving the problem they had, instead of by fighting, if the players chose to investigate rather than rush in with their swords, and fortunately figured this out in one of the first bosses they encountered, Leo, who simply had a thorn stuck in his paw and was approaching caravans to get someone to pull it out, attacking only if he was struck first. They thought to perceive him when he came up, noted his limp, and checked out his paw. He gave them a magic item in thanks. Good kitty. 6 of them had to be fought in combat. No amount of diplomacy could be had. Either they lacked the intelligence to be diplomatized, or their goal was so different from the party, everyone was good-leaning with one chaotic neutral who was in love with a good-aligned character. All 12 were of varying strengths, and there were lots of smaller combats in there to help them level up so they could handle the stronger monsters and learn how the game worked. Again, there were a lot of newbies at the table. Only 2 of us had previously played a campaign to completion, with a third who had some experience but only a few sessions worth. Now, they dealt with the first 2 and had some confidence and levels under their belts. They started at level 1 to help the newer players learn how to level up too, and were at a mere level 3 when our story really begins. The Crab. So, our adventurers had found themselves in the town of Mackerel, their problem being that a crab was attacking them at night, and often attacking ships that went on the water in daylight, with no rhyme or reason. The party was, of course, concerned and planned to wait in the town until the crab appeared. And as luck of the dice would have it, I rolled a 100% chance of it showing up on the first night when the party was half drunk. Oh, that's gonna go great. I wanted them not to engage since they were new and I didn't want to deal with the fallout of a TPK. They were only level 3, and as I was the GM, I knew how strong this large crab could be. They ignored the warning and engaged the crab. A shipwrecker crab, if you didn't know, is CR 13. AC was a whopping 27, well above what they could hit without a nat 20, and 189 HP, which for level 3s who can't even hit the thing, is a lot. Its minimum to hit was plus 18, and that's if it rolled a 2. And only 1 character had AC higher than that. And its minimum damage was 23. Bear in mind, these characters are level 3, and the highest hit point total was 21, meaning 1 strike, even at minimal damage, was going to knock everyone either out, unconscious, and begin dying, or kill them instantly in the magic users' cases. Higher damage would kill any of them instantly. So why was this even an option to appear here? I gave it a small weak point under its belly because that was where you would normally kill a crab, as it was large enough to walk under. Strike its weak point for massive damage. The AC there was at an 18, so more doable, but still very difficult for our low-level characters. Damage calculation the same, and there was the danger that it would simply squash you with its body. I would allow an acrobatics check to flip out entirely, avoiding the damage, and the damage there at the minimum roll was higher at 28 points. In retrospect, it should have been a reflex save, but this was my first time GMing, and I didn't have much experience playing yet either. So the fight begins, and it takes a mighty swing at a player whose AC is lowest, because that was who was closest. Nat 1. The fighter goes in for a hit. Nat 20. This keeps going. They get lucky with their nat 20s or by exploiting the weak point they discovered. They roll extremely high acrobatics checks to flip out from under. Our spellcaster does chip damage, but it's still damage. And the 2 combat classes roll so many nat 20s, I made them change their die, which did nothing. The only times the crab does not roll a nat 1 to hit is against the 1 character whose AC was just high enough that it wouldn't hit with that 2 he rolled. Almost sounds kind of fake. All of a sudden, before I really even knew what was happening, the crab was dead. I was both incredibly amused and remarkably angry, because there was absolutely no way in heck they should have been able to survive this crab, let alone defeat it. I ended up telling them its stats in a rant, telling them just how impossible that fight was. Never since have I seen anything like it either. As a punishment for defeating the crab they by rights never should have been able to beat, they got crab soup as a meal in every town they went to. Wait, no, how is that a punishment? That sounds amazing. Ooh, and tail end. Now, this was hardly the most interesting story out there, as it was just a series of insanely lucky rolls, but it was still an outcome most of us can only dream of. It almost definitely shouldn't have gone like this, but like the OP said, this was their first time DMing, and this was pretty early into the campaign, so in all likelihood there was something going a little bit wrong. Granted, a more experienced DM would know not to throw a CR 13 creature at a party of level 3, but this is all part of the growing pains. If nothing else, everyone got a ridiculous story out of it. And that will do it for today. Tune in for more Glory Stories next week. Same Foxy time, same Foxy channel. Please, as always, let me know what you thought about these stories in the comments section below. Have you ever had a string of rolls quite like the one in the second story? Don't forget to like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, and ring that bell to be notified when I upload. By the time this goes live, I should be at 500 subscribers. That kind of growth in just a couple months is so huge, and I appreciate you all so much. There's no way the channel could have grown like this without all of you, too. So, as a thank you, in Wednesday's Community Day video, submit your stories, I will be including the full blooper reel of messed up takes I thought were funny. So, make sure you tune into that. But, until then, let's douse the fire and get back to our own adventures.